Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Pro Football Net Point Power Rankings and the Pro Football Bias Plus reports, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
Hello out there, this is Ben Dickerson, your co-host. I produce fantasy football championships, also fantasy basketball and fantasy baseball championships. I am a beast. The NFL draft is approaching. April 28th, I believe, is the date. So until we get there, what do we got?
Well, we got a lot of stuff, and it's all at Ben and Barry on football on our Facebook page. And that's where we're going to start this thing off, Benny, because we have a lot to talk about. Let's start off with just a quick announcement, man. I just wanted to share this with everybody. There will be some pro football happening next month. The New Jersey Generals and the Birmingham Stallions. That's easy for me to say. April 16th, Fox NBC. Want to watch some football? This will be something that we can take a look at. What do you think, Benny?
I think I'll probably tune in. We'll see what's going on talent-wise. I know it's professional football, which essentially means that the players will be paid. So I'm going to tune in just to see if we got enough talent on the field to justify them getting paid.
Okay. Enough talent to justify them getting paid. I don't know what their salaries are. We'll have to take a look at that. I track that stuff. I know we tracked it for the XFL, and which was, if you remember, I think everybody was getting the same salary. It was like $225,000. Not a bad paycheck, okay? And then when they looked at Kaepernick, the question was, did Kaepernick want to play with the XFL? And he was like, yeah, for like $1 million. So he automatically ruled himself right on out of the XFL by asking what he known was not going to happen. That they weren't structured like that, So that fed into my opinion. I don't know about you, of that he didn't really want to play football.
I would say that would fall under that category, yes.
Didn't really want to play. All right. We go to Ben and Barry on football to get this thing started. So here we are. This is our Facebook page, ladies and germs. So you'll know it when you get there. It's facebook.com/BNBOF. You do not even have to have a Facebook membership or whatever you want to call it. You don't have to be on Facebook because it's just like a website. You can just go here and you can see the page and all of the things that we put out. So we thank everybody. And we want to make sure that if you're looking at this on YouTube, that you click on the subscribe button and click on the like button and let us know some of your opinions and your reactions to some of the things that we are going to say, because this is just two guys who love football. We have different approaches, different mindsets about these things. We have a lot of things that we agree on and a lot of things that we don't agree on. And we even approach these questions sometimes from different mindsets, as I say. So let's get started. We're just going to go straight down, and I will put them in maybe a different order at a later time. All right, Benny. Deshaun Watson. What I wanted to share with you is this article, and I hadn't heard this, but it came out in the owners meeting, and they just had the owners meeting. So the last couple of days, this past weekend, they were down in Florida. I forget the name of the hotel, but I think the room rate started at about $1,200 a night.
Nice place if you can get in.
Yeah, know what I'm saying. But according to a source familiar with the league's process under the new CBA, and this is something that it's that union contract, right? That decision on any type of NFL type penalties that would be levied onto Deshaun Watson. You know what I'm saying? We were all saying, yeah, well, the league's going to get him for a certain amount of days, right? Well, that used to be in the hands of pretty much Goodell. It's kind of whatever he wanted, that's what was going to happen.
Right.
However, with this new union agreement, the process now is that the decision is expected to be placed in the hands of former U.S. District Court Judge Sue Robinson, who has been chosen by the NFL and NFL Players Association to act as an impartial arbitrator in disciplinary cases like Watson's. So the type of discipline that he gets is going to first be recommended by Judge Sue Robinson. Now, further in the article, they state that if the league wants to challenge, her verdict, there is a process for that also. But you can go to Ben and Barry on football and see a lot more of the details. Had you heard anything about this?
No, I wasn't aware of this, but I'm sure there's a bunch of things in the new CBA that we're not aware of. I don't have a problem with it. If the union agrees with it, they're probably thinking on the opposite side of the way that Goodell is looking at it. I think Goodell is looking at it as over the years, when it was up to him to levy suspensions or decide if somebody was supposed to be on the commissioner's exempt list, so to speak, which means basically you cannot play. There has been a lot of precedent setting going on. In other words, this guy did this, he got 4 games. This guy did this, he got 6 games, and so on and so forth. So now bringing in an impartial person to handle this kind of thing and make these decisions, even though if it's an unpopular decision with the commissioner or an unpopular decision with the union, they have a system to kind of go back over it and change it or whatever. This impartial person will now, I think, be out from under the precedents, so to speak. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. In other words, they won't be able to go back and say, Goodell, you gave him 6 games for doing this. This guy did the same thing. How are you going to give him 8 games? You see what I'm saying? So they have some new person, an impartial person, a female person, because we do get a whole lot of,
22 women, 22 female complaints and a female judge.
Yeah. Right. So we don't know how that's going to come out.
I usually do during time for election, I try to do some research on judges. Sometimes you can find stuff, and sometimes they hide their information. You can go online, you can't find out nothing about them. It's an interesting scenario, but I hadn't looked her up to see if she had any history, with sex crimes and, that type of, I don't even know if she was on the criminal or the civil side or both, or what she did, but I did find that interesting, your point though, about the woman.
Yeah, well, let's face it, she's a judge, so she has experience in coming up with decisions after studying the circumstances of whatever the crime or whatever the dispute is. So I'll have faith in her that she will do her due diligence and come up with a fair and impartial judgment when the time comes. But we will have to wait and see.
The fair and impartial judgment that you're talking about is going to be based on the information that is unearthed in these 22 civil lawsuits. So
right.
All of that information, and remember what we talked about civil, it's a preponderance of evidence.
Right.
So that's what they're going to be looking to have a preponderance of evidence. And again, for him, he went off, what do you call it? Went off the boat or went off whatever in terms of going outside of the team and all of that kind of stuff to get this stuff done, and the number of women that were involved. The one good thing that we pointed out last week, he actually had a number of positive comments. People said that they had no problem with him. He's professional, blah, blah, blah. But it still strikes a weird tone that that's what he wanted to do. And as you said, cheap thrills, if that's what you were looking for, you can't do that if you're the face of the franchise. So
I got to stick with that. And if it was 4 people, you know what I mean? My first question is, why do you have so many different people? But, that's his choice. He can do what he wants. All right. But if he got 100 massages and 4 people said he was inappropriate and 22 people said he was cool, this would be a lot different. But this guy got like 2 zillion freaking massages and, 10 or 12 people said he was cool and 22 said, nah. So it's hard to tell, man. We'll have to wait and see.
It only takes one. If you could have 100 massages, if you violate one person, you could go to jail.
Oh, absolutely.
So it only takes one.
If you did it, but that's the thing. So he got through the criminal proceedings. All right. That doesn't mean he didn't do anything. It's just that they couldn't pin anything criminal on him.
Exactly.
Okay. So now they have to look at all this evidence again and find out or figure out, does he owe these women anything?
So the main thing is that that those attorneys are going to unearth as much as they can.
I know they will, but why wouldn't they unearth as much as they could to the point of everything to get him on the criminal suits?
That's a good.
What else could they find?
Again, that's a good question. It depends on the laws of that jurisdiction and whether these things, like you said, you said it yourself last week, it sounds like the things he did really didn't raise themselves to the level of criminal, of a criminal situation.
Right. But that doesn't, so there may have been some things that the attorneys felt this isn't even going to help us on the criminal side. They might have been saving it.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know enough about the law, bro. The only reason I brought it
up is because when I said the preponderance of evidence, then that preponderance is going to be on the attorney representation for those 22 women to present. But all of that preponderance is then going to be given to the NFL.
Right.
And that's what they're going to make their decision on.
And
so
that's when
the legal decisions, and then after that, the league decisions.
And then Ms. Robinson is going to say, this is what the NFL is going to do. Okay.
That's how that's going to work. All right, that's enough of that. All right, Benny. So the next thing up I want to talk about, just very quickly, and again, we're going to be at our Facebook page, Ben and Barry on Football. We invite people when we post stuff. That's generally well before the show. So if you have any comments, go to Ben and Barry on Football's Facebook page and leave your comments, and that we'd love to include some of those comments in the show. We had one comment that I'll mention because he was a coworker at Verizon who commented on one of our things. I'll mention it when we get to it. Wanted to quickly let everybody know that here's, sometimes you got to find stuff and it's not where you might think it's going to be, but this is a pretty good summary of the upcoming dates for the National Football League. So we're in the off season now. We've gone through March for the most part. The thing about March that we just finished was the annual league meeting, but I kind of missed the International Player Pathway Pro Day. Remember that this is where they bring in.
Oh, they brought guys over from like Europe.
Right, exactly. And they even had to be determined, but I'm going to take a quick look because it might be to be determined, but guess what? I believe I found it.
And we've had some fun on the Pro Day circuit. We now give you international intrigue. We are going worldwide down at Florida's Pro Day. The gray shirts, they're competing, part of the international player pool on display for scouts. This is quite a drill, DJ.
Well, you could say they're trying to look at their hips, see if you can identify some tightness there. Can you flip and open all the way up? I don't know that I've ever seen the D-line guys go through this, but again, that's what you're trying to do. That's why you have them run the hoops. Just trying to see how flexible, how fluid they can be. You gas them out. That's the other part of that one. Running like that.
That's part of it, for sure. And like each team, now in the NFL has the ability to bring in international players as part of their roster construction. So kind of getting a glimpse of some of them.
All right, that's enough of that right now.
When they say part of their roster construction, I'm not sure what that means. Is there some kind of a supplemental draft of some sort?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a supplemental draft or they have some special positions that they have sort of on the roster for international players that might be somewhere between the practice squad and the 50 and potentially even part of the 53-man roster, but maybe
okay.
from the count somehow,
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, they, again, they're moving internationally. We're going to talk a little bit about something that happened internationally that we had mentioned last week, and then we got some news. It's not good news, but we have some news we'll talk about a little later on in the show. All right, so next up, Benny, very interesting what happened in the NFL after the signings of the quarterbacks, some of those humongous quarterback contracts. And this article kind of brought it together where they looked at the Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs, the Green Bay Packers, and the Cowboys, all teams with big quarterback contracts. And they wound up losing their best players. A big talent wound up leaving their team. So, it's funny. I remember talking about Carson Wentz, and the thing, I don't know if it was you maybe had said it, the thing about Carson Wentz, and even I'll say Kirk Cousins, is that the question is, are they the quarterback that when the team is not operating at its best, that quarterback can lift that team to a certain level of performance? Like, the line might not have been working right for Patrick Mahomes in the year they won the Super Bowl, but his mobility and his playmaking ability was able to kind of overcome that and still lift them to win. You know what I'm saying? That's what they kind of expect out of quarterbacks. But the irony is that by signing those big contracts, they're literally putting them in that situation where they have to do that because they're losing high levels of talent as a result. I'll mention one thing. I took a quick look at the average salary. Now, if you notice here, it says here that all three are quarterbacks. These teams have quarterbacks who are in the top 5 in terms of average annual value. Rodgers is 26% of the cap. It's a 53-man roster, but he's over 25% of the cap by himself. So that leaves 75% of the cap to go to the other 52 men on the roster. And so, they ultimately are starting to make business decisions. Lastly, I want to mention that the thing that he does do also in this article is he kind of looks ahead and says, okay, there might be some other teams that are going to have.
Not might. It will be. Because these other quarterbacks, there's only a handful, but there's a handful of quarterbacks that can say, if this guy can get this kind of contract, why can't I?
Well, before you even get to that, Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns is one of those teams that they're saying they're going to have to contend with the size of his contract and the impact on the cap,
Absolutely.
at some particular point. So that's one of those teams that they're saying, is going to have to deal with that. But if you look at, and these are rough numbers, if you look at the total cap divided by the 53-man roster just evenly, it averages out to about $3 million a person. Okay, so these are rough numbers, 3 million. So if you give one guy 40, the average would be 3. That's way over the average And
Right.
so, now the average is going to have to go lower for everybody else. And it's funny, I was surprised that they didn't mention this, that, when I say they, I'm talking about the media, when Devontae Adams left, they were talking about how the Packers tried to match, the offer that he had. But they don't always mention that by the time that happened, they had already pissed him off. That whole franchise, as soon as they offered him the franchise, and he had said to them, I don't want the franchise. And they said, okay, here's a franchise. He's like, okay, we're done.
He said, I refuse to play under the franchise tag, period.
Right. So why, so he just pissed
So
him
as
off.
soon as he says that, you got to start talking to his agent and trying to work something out. You got time. You have to make the effort. They didn't make the effort.
No, they were bureaucratic about it. And, it's like I know people that used to leave the phone company. They're like, this is a great job. And they're like, man, look, their particular experience led them to say, I'm out. I know people like that. So crazy. But I wanted to mention that article because it also is on our Facebook page, and you can take a look at that in more detail, because it's truly a valid point, and it's like pay me now or pay me later. And they're paying now, but they're going to pay for it later in a number of different ways. All right. The NFL made the decision on the taunting penalties. You read this already?
No, I did not. Please tell me what is their decision.
Well, the interesting thing is there was, who was it last year, Benny? It was the, I think, was it the Texans, where the guy he took like 2 steps toward the other team's sidelines and said something and turned right around and ran back, and they flagged him like a champ. He's like, it wasn't, I think it was just like a reflex, when he caught the ball or whatever, and he looked like 2 steps, like he was going to go over and say something, and we just turned around and came back. That was enough to get him flagged right there, and I think, if I remember, that was one of the plays that really was controversial. Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. So, again, the league and the NFLPA, the union, have got together. Troy Vincent, being the executive vice president of football operations, they said they looked at 61 taunting flags. 56 of them had acts the NFL will continue to enforce in 2022 as a sportsmanship emphasis, according to Troy Vincent. Now, what they're saying is they stand on sportsmanship, universal in the agreement, and there were areas that they want to clean up. The main thing is they're told to celebrate with their teammates. They can go celebrate all they want with their teammates, but if they go out of their way to taunt or the opponent, then they will get a flag. So, that's kind of what they're saying. Celebrate with your teammates was the phrase that was pretty clear. Don't go back towards your opponent. And that's basically how they left it.
That's it?
That's it.
So they had 60 some odd infractions, and they said 50 of them, 50 plus, were cool.
No, the 50 plus
were
when you say cool, they were
that they made the right call.
Right. They were still thinking that those were, yeah.
Okay, and only 5 weren't. I saw 5 bad calls in one weekend.
Taunting calls?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's what make sure. That's what we.
That's only my opinion. if you say giving the guy deuces as you run by him, or waving bye-bye to him, or turning around and running backwards and looking at him because you know you can score and there's nothing he can do about it. CeeDee Lamb did that one. Okay, I get it, because you are directly taunting that player or players. If it's going to be like that and you're trying to eliminate that type of one-on-one almost, yeah, I did it to you type of thing, okay, fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter if we think it's a big deal or not. Okay, they are. I don't even want to use. I'm trying to think of another word for taunting, making fun of, talking ish to, blah blah blah, to an opponent, to make them feel bad or something. Who am I to say what's fair and what's not, what's just and what's not, what should be allowed or shouldn't, you know? But
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's kind of crazy. If you catch a pass on the sideline, I mean, you make a great, toe drag swag, pick up a big, huge first down, and it happens to be on the opponent's sideline, and you jump up, and there's nothing but opposing players around you, you're probably going to get a flag for nothing. What are you going to do? They're all around you. So there's no teammate
around and run over to your teammates.
And that's what they want you to do. There's none of your teammates around. So you have to subdue your celebration until you get away from those other guys and get near your guys.
That's what you're going to have to do.
This stuff's cuckoo, man. They're going to keep throwing these flags. I don't know. It's too much for me, right?
Ben can't handle. He can't handle the flags.
I can't handle it.
All right. Let's see if you can handle this, Benny. Our man Cam the man Newton. You gotta love him. I didn't know this about Cam, that he's been big in 7-on-7 football, organizing leagues and things of that nature. And the article that we found here, it says Cam Newton partners with Overtime to launch a 7-on-7 football league. In the article, they said before starting his pro career on their own, a handful of current NFL players have played under Newton's tutelage, including Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, Jacoby Myers, and the soon-to-be drafted Malik Willis. Did you know anything about this?
Played what, 7-on-7 under his tutelage?
Yeah.
What, when they say played, what the heck are they talking about? Are they talking about workouts? They don't have time for league play. They got a whole college career. Then they have combine. Then they get drafted, and then they start their pro career. Where do they have time to play in a 7-on-7 league?
I guess the off season. I don't know. Let me see here.
There is no off season for them.
Newton, of course, is no stranger supporting youth football as he's coached up kids through his 7-on-7 program.
Oh, I get it. These guys are all much younger than Cam Newton. He's okay. I get it. They have camps where they bring in elite athletes from high school and they play 7-on-7. It's strictly skill position camps. There's no linemen or anything.
Right.
Okay, that's different. I'm now that I'm thinking about it, these dudes are all young. So these are probably when they were coming out of high school or in between 10th grade and 11th grade and in between 11th and 12th grade, they played. Okay, I get it. That's fine. That's great.
That's great. I mean, and I didn't.
There's camps like that all over the country, though.
Right, but I'm sure to have a camp run by Cam Newton has got to be a little special.
It's special for quarterbacks.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Mannings have camps like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
You threw me there for a second. I'm like, what? When these guys have time to play 7-on-7? They were in high school at the time. I get it.
Ben,
let's not. No bad Giants news.
Oh man,
I
I'm
love
kind of a Jabril Peppers fan. When he went from the Browns to the Giants, I was like, okay, go ahead, Giants. So yeah, now he's supposed to be moving on to the Patriots. So
That's cool.
Yeah, it's just a little movement news, man. But he's another quiet guy who's a player. You know what I mean? He's always been a player. I've always been kind of, in awe of him. Now, I want to share something with you. I wasn't sure about this signing, what they're trying to say. But the Red Rifle's going down to New Orleans. I guess to back up Jameson.
I believe I made a comment on this one. It says insurance for Jameis. Taysom Hill is going back to being a full-time tight end.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Was that I was looking at this from the perspective of how much better is Jameis or is the Jameis than the Red Rifle? So let's see here. I'm going to go first to my to my trusty Madden ratings, but I have something else that I want to share just in case, and that is Pro Football Focus. So I have a new subscription. I've added Pro Football Focus, and that's what we're going to take a look at that. But first, let's take a quick look at Jameis relative to the standard by which all quarterbacks should be measured, and that's Kirk Cousins. But you see, it's interesting because you know what this reminded me of? You see overall ratings for Jameis at 76 and for Andy Dalton 71. Yeah, that's pretty good, actually. I mean, I like if you're going to have a backup, at least have a decent backup. He's decent relative to the starter. I mean, if it was a Pat Mahomes starting, it'd be a big drop off, but it's not that big of a drop off. Andy Dalton.
Wait. What exactly is it that you're trying to say right now? You're saying if you're looking for a backup for Patrick Mahomes and he's a 99, then you need a guy that's a 92. But since Jameis is only a 76, then it's okay for his backup to be 71. Is that what you're saying?
And that's not exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
I said there would be a big drop off. There usually is for the backup. There's a pretty big drop off. But as much as you can mitigate the drop off, you want to do that. Like, if you got a Patrick Mahomes, his backup is not going to be a 92 because they're scarce. But he might be a strong 80. He might be a high 70. He might be a 81 like Kirk Cousins.
So if the Chiefs brought in Andy Dalton, what would you say about that?
I'd say that's kind of par for the course in the NFL. They don't have real strong backups.
You killing
but
me.
It's just interesting.
He's still not a strong backup. I don't care if he's saying
it's interesting to see how close these two are in their rankings or their ratings, not rankings, their ratings. It reminds me actually of what my Niners. Garoppolo's like a 75. Trey Lance is like a 73, So it's just an interesting scenario, and I didn't realize that they had Jameis so low at a 76. Now, if you go over if we go over to Pro Football Focus, give me a second, and I'll try to bring that up here. So Pro Football Focus, Jameis has an overall rating of 74.2. Okay. So passing 66.3, rushing 90. They have a little more information on him. If you look at, I don't know if I have, I don't think I have the red rifle up here, but that's kind of, it's kind of in line with what Madden is saying in terms of the ratings look at different things. They, Pro Football Focus looks at your play, every play, what you did, what the situation was, and all of that kind of stuff. So they put a lot of that type of stuff into the your grading, whereas the other one is more a matter of trying to measure your basic skills, your throwing power, your throwing accuracy, your speed, that kind of stuff. They do have speed up here. Jameis came in at a 4.97 coming out of Florida State. So he can run a little bit. He's 6'4". So I just thought it was interesting, an interesting backup for Jameis. Not so much from you?
Well, see, after you say all that and show me Madden ratings and tell me how close they are, like that really, really means something, I have to wonder exactly how I should address this. Andy Dalton, whether you like him or not, has been a starter almost his entire career. This guy started for two different teams. Cincinnati Bengals, he was a longtime starter, and then he started for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if you want to poo-poo the success that he had, so be it. I mean, when he's playing with the Bengals, they weren't very good anyway. When he's playing for the Cowboys, I think more was expected of him. And I didn't think he did that badly, considering that they had no defense and needed Dak to even keep up with teams because they were getting smashed on the scoreboard all the time. So Andy Dalton kind of gets a bad rap in my estimation. I think if you can get a veteran backup who has a large starter resume, that's better than getting a veteran backup who plays 2 games a year and has gone seasons where he never started a game.
You mean like
been around,
like about last week?
Like what we talked about last week, having the best job in the
100%.
league.
I agree with you 100%,
Right. So in that respect, I think that's a great pickup for the Saints.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Here's a guy who's been around, who knows his way around a playbook, who knows his way around a quarterback meeting, who does well with his coaches. I've never heard a coach or a coordinator say anything bad about the guy. He's a good teammate as far as I can tell. And I think he'll come in, pick up the system quickly. And who knows, depending on how quickly he picks up the system and how he looks in camp, this could turn into a competition. I don't think they're getting him to make it a competition. I think they have had Jameis around in the system long enough that they want to give him a fair shot at being the starter. I think he's earned it. I thought he was playing relatively well before he got injured last season. So, but you never know, man. Coaches change their minds. If Jameis struggles in camp with any particular part of his game and Dalton comes in and looks solid, it could turn into a competition. They're not going to give Dalton the job. Well, but it could turn into a competition. I don't think they're planning on making it a competition because let's face it, they don't bring Dalton in as a backup. He don't play.
I agree with you 100%. And what you're saying, your conclusions are basically my conclusions and why I was pointing out that they were even rated so closely. The gap between the two quarterbacks isn't that great. So, yeah, you could have a competition very easily. And if Jameis, who did you hear about Jameis, his quote that he put out on Twitter lately? saying I can do everything that your
favorite quarterback can do. Yes, I did see that. And he's right. He's right. He actually can.
No, he can't. He can't.
Yes, he can.
No.
Yes, he can.
He's thinking in terms of a couple different abilities, but if you throw in processing the play and making the best decision, he ain't matching my favorite quarterbacks. So that's where it's going.
And who are they? And who are they?
Well, right now,
there's 32 starters in the league. So processing information, reading defenses, name them. Who's better?
You started Tom Brady. You start there.
That's one.
Next, you go to Aaron Rodgers.
Two.
Okay. Next, you go to.
Don't say Patrick Mahomes. Keep going.
I ain't gonna tell me not to say Patrick Mahomes
because he's not no great reader of defenses and processing information.
I think he's better. I think he's.
That's why he runs around in circles all day.
And
gains yards off of broken plays.
I think he might be better than Jameis.
You got two.
I think he might be better than Jameis.
Incorrect. When you ever see Jameis be as indecisive and scramble around as much as he does, roll out when he doesn't have to, break the pocket when he doesn't have to. Jameis doesn't do that. You got two.
Jameis also threw a lot more interceptions, which means
Jameis took a lot of chances.
Something wrong. Now you said you blamed it on the system he was in. Okay.
Yes.
And
yes.
So some of that might also be Mahomes' situation. But let's not get stuck on Mahomes. You asked a good question.
I'm not stuck. I said don't name him. You got two. Keep going.
Well, you can't tell me how many I got. I got three. Now, and beyond Mahomes, I'd have to think because he said
you would.
He said your favorite quarterbacks. I don't.
And
have
he's talking in general to everybody out there.
That many favorites. So if you're talking to me, that's pretty much it. So you think that
that's my point.
You think he has? Well, not everybody. That's the point I'm making. There are a few, and those guys. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me add Stafford to that list. I would add him also.
Oh, excuse me. That's four.
Yeah, I would add Stafford. I mean, I have to think about it a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, you would.
I would say this much. On the awareness level on Madden, Kirk Cousins is higher. So
I don't care.
There you go.
I don't care. My point was you poo-pooed his statement. And I challenged you to see who you could come up with. And you just said, I have to think about it. You got four. I say it's arguably three. And you would have to think about it some more on one attribute. Only one.
That's the most important attribute.
You think so?
Yeah.
You sure?
We'll find out with Tua Tagovailoa because if he's not processing stuff very quickly with the arm and this versus the speed, he's going to have a problem. So,
right, and he won 8 out of 9 games coming down the stretch.
Yeah.
Can't read a defense. He couldn't read a defense if you put it in Samoan.
Why do you say that about Tua?
Let's move on.
You look at what you said about Tua. We'll come back to that at some particular point.
You're losing this one. Let's move on to the next subject. I was just making the point that this not what he said is not as simple as you think it is. You tried to blow it off. It's not that easy. He's actually right.
Yeah, okay. If you think he's right, then that's your opinion. He said your favorite quarterbacks. I found my favorite quarterbacks were the guys that I think would be much better. And so there you go. Now, Benny, we've talked about the status of the black coaches. Tomlin let them have it a little bit at the NFL owners meeting. And as a result, they've made some changes. Have you seen any about the news about the changes?
Changes to what? The Rooney Rule?
Well, yes, there's some changes to the Rooney Rule, but there are more changes than just that. What they're going to do is they're going to require that you have an offensive assistant quarterback on every team, and they're going to subsidize it by the league is going to subsidize that position. Because offensive coordinator assistant, yes.
Coordinator.
Color, woman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
They're saying the predominant amount of coaches are coming out of the offensive side.
Okay.
So that's where the opportunity is. They want to make sure that you have minorities in the pipeline for that.
Including females.
Including females, yes.
Got it.
Including females.
I thought that was an amendment to the Rooney Rule that I did hear.
The interesting thing to me, Benny, is when we go back to our fundamental point is that the problem is with the owners. It just seems to me that they keep building a bureaucracy here. And again, nobody's going to go to what's the Patriot owner? Now he'd be a bad person to ask this question to, but let's say you have an owner and like that's maybe what is it, the Dolphins owner, right? Well, he just fired a black quarterback, so he's part of the suit, so you can't talk to him. But to go to the owners and say to them, you know, what's up with your track record on hiring black coaches? Because you're the final say here. And you know, you've had no black coaches or one black coach out of X amount of hiring. They don't do that. They just don't go to the horse and just approach it. And if they said to them, this is what the problem is, or this is why, you know, this is what they're bringing, whatever they said would be the reason, then you could maybe develop something in context with the owner to open that opportunity up. But if the owner just shows himself that he just don't want to, you know, then at least you know what you're dealing with. Here, I
think we're at that point already.
You don't know what you're dealing with, really.
Now, I think we're at that point already. I think they do know why certain owners have never had a black head coach or black general manager or more than one or two black coordinators, because they just don't want them. And it's my team and I can hire who I want. They're not going to say, because I don't like black people. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, it's my team and I can hire whoever I want. And you can't tell me that I can't do that.
Are they going to? You think they're going to say that publicly?
What? That I can hire who I want?
Yeah, the owner.
They say it every year. They say it every year.
I mean, actually say it.
It's
one thing that they do it. It's another thing that they say it with a microphone in front of their face and as the answer to a question from media.
Well, it's kind of obvious when they get the microphone in front of their face and they say, we interviewed these 6 people and we felt like this guy was the best fit for us and we chose him. It's the same thing. If you keep doing that and it's always a white guy every time, when you can look at resumes, you can do the eye test, you can watch these guys work on other teams at assistant levels or coordinator levels, and you know, if you know anything about football, and I'm not even talking about me, I'm talking about people that are already in the NFL, and say, this guy's unquestionably better for this job than that guy. They can say, we felt that he interviewed better, he was a better fit. They know, everybody knows the buzzwords. They know what they're dealing with. That's why they're saying, now you have to do this. Because if they don't say you have to do this, they're never going to do it.
Well, let's keep an eye out, because you can have all the offensive coordinators you want. That doesn't mean you're going to hire them. You know, that's you're automatically going to sit there with a 2 or 3 year lag, because you're going to say, well, you can't hire them next year because we just hired them last year as an assistant, so they don't have the experience. You know, so there's this buffer that's built in. It's just going to continue to be a bureaucratic.
Right, but they'll hire a high school coach.
Right, exactly. Oh, actually, I think they added another thing And I'll be quite honest with you, you have to go back to the article, but they're going to have a certain minimum requirements now, I believe, for head coaches. So that
again, because they know if you have a overqualified offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, position coach of color, there's no doubt about it. Every player that ever played under this guy loves him. He has proven his worth. Maybe he's been on a Super Bowl team, and the owner hires a dude out of high school, never coached in the NFL. It happens. Never, even in college, never coached in the NFL at any level. And you say, why did you hire him instead of him? What are they going to say? He interviewed well. We felt he was a better fit. They know what they're dealing with. That's why they have to make these rules. They have to make them do it. Because if they don't make them do it, they ain't going to do it. And they're still going to hit roadblocks, like you said. So they hire a woman to be an assistant offensive coach. She might sit there on that job for who knows how long and never get promoted because they only hired her to fill the requirement. Just like all these black coaches, Eric Bieniemy gets interviewed every single year, never gets hired as a head coach. They're just using him and using that interview to fill the requirement.
Well, okay. Let's track this. We'll stay on it. We talk about this on an ongoing basis. Want to run through a few more things before we finish up. John Harbaugh, Ravens agreed to a 3-year contract extension. That's good stuff, man. I mean, don't you think? For the Ravens?
I think it's good for the Ravens. I believe that John Harbaugh deserves that. They fell on some hard times last season, right when it seemed like they were trending up and really pushing to be Super Bowl contenders. I think their window is still slightly open. So you want to keep as much, continuity as you can. Yeah, it's a good move.
All righty.
I mean, basically, they give him a 3-year contract extension. They're saying our window's open 3 years. Let's get it done.
Well, we're all looking at Lamar. Hey,
Right.
man, happy birthday to Earl Campbell.
Yes.
What's your favorite Earl Campbell memory?
Oh, so many. The one where he ran over the dude from Denver, the biggest hitter, what was his name? They had a couple guys. They had Dennis Smith and Atwater.
He ran over Atwater?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Atwater. It was the guy from the Rams. It was a linebacker from the Rams. He put his head down and ran into this guy's chest, and they both toppled into the end zone. But he blew him up. There was another one where they had, back in the days when they had the tearaway jerseys.
He was running down the sideline?
Yeah, by the time he scored, he was naked. It was crazy.
I always remember, I think it was the Steelers. He broke his helmet or something like that.
Oh, he split his helmet. He had somebody split his helmet. Yeah.
I think that
He
was
did that a couple times.
Really?
Holy smokes. Golly. Well, I put something on my personal Facebook page. In fact, it was that. There's video. I think it's video that goes with that.
Yeah, I just want to mention, do a shout out to JB who came on and commented under that. So, but yeah, here it is right here. Earl Campbell, man. What you gonna do with him, Benny?
Tyler Rose.
Tyler Rose. Okay. Next up, again, we are fans of Colin Kaepernick, I do believe. Whether you agree with everything as the way he's done it or not, generally you have to be a fan. And I saw this and wanted to share it on our Facebook page. Colin Kaepernick has a children's book out. Color Myself Different. 18 months in the making, and it's right there. Colin Kaepernick has a children's book out. Go check it out, and let me know what you think about it. I said it's a story about, let's see here, identity adoption and the power of self-love. There you go. There you go. See, I knew he was doing something. Just wasn't football.
Oh, I'm sure he's doing a lot of things, but I don't no, I don't even want to get into it, bro. We talked about it last week. I'm sure something else will come up that's going to bring his name up again, and the question as to whether he really wants to play or not will come up. But after a while, it's going to die, bro, because there's an expiration date on football careers.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
Once he gets a certain age, I don't care how much he works out, they're going to be like, nah, bro, can't do it.
Can't do it. Well, look, remember we were talking about those offensive coordinators, and some of them might be women. We talked about that in the previous, a little bit earlier.
Yes.
Well, some of those women might be coming from the female football players scholarship for flag football that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually have put out. They actually have a scholarship. They want to give away some money to female high school seniors participating in a form of football, touch, flag, tackle, any of that stuff, who plan to continue their education in college. Apply by May 20th. Come to Ben & Barry on football. You have the link right there for any of the young ladies that you know. And you were telling me before that women's flag football is big.
Yeah, it's big, but most of these women are beyond college age. They're mothers and homemakers, and they got full-time jobs and stuff. They just play because they love the game. Well,
hey, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
I mean, at this point, there are high school teams that are adopting teams. Not adopting teams, but there are high schools who have actual female flag football teams.
Yeah.
As that begins to grow across the country, where let's say the public league in Philly decides, you know what? We're going to start girls flag football. And they start to get teams together. And then Germantown. Sorry, Germantown. My school's not open anymore. Now, what are you laughing at? Doherty's closed too.
I know. My school's closed. Hey, guess what?
What?
We're about to have our 50th high school anniversary.
Oh my God. Anyway, let's say Imhotep gets a team, and Bartram gets a team, and Gratz gets a team, and you know what I mean? And that begins to build.
You have to throw Roxborough in there.
Say Roxborough gets a team, and this begins to build. Okay, the same thing is kind of going on college campuses.
Yeah.
Right. So it may not be on the NCAA level yet, but it's at least on the intramural level. And if they're willing to give these young ladies money to further their educations, I say it's a wonderful thing, and it's all going to start to fall together. Who knows? One day we may have a professional flag football league for men and women. I mean, we kind of do now, but
kind of, sort of, yeah.
I mean, there are tournaments you can go to where prize money is offered, but that's not, it's not exactly the same.
Not the same thing. All right. A few more things we want to talk about real quick. Detroit was named the host city of the 2024 NFL Draft, edging out Green Bay and Washington. And Detroit's in a dome, right?
Yes.
Makes sense then. Makes sense. Congratulations to Detroit for getting that, and their crazy coach. I'm sure he'll be somewhere in that scenario. Oh yeah, they're going to be they're
going to be on Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks.
Yes. I wasn't going to say it because I didn't know if I was scrolling through our page to see if it was on there and you were going to get to it.
Didn't have it
But,
on the page. You know, I'm glad you mentioned
yeah,
it.
they will be on Hard Knocks, and supposedly some kneecaps are going to get bitten off. So that's going to be entertaining. I like their coach. Their head coach is, if that's not the essence of a player coach, I don't know who is. I mean, this guy, when you listen to him talk, it's like they went in the locker room and said, dude, you're getting a little low to play. Just coach the team. You know what I'm saying? So he takes his shoulder pads off and puts a hat on, puts a clipboard, and goes, and that's the kind of guy he seems to be. He's great.
That Ben Dickerson?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
No wonder you love that guy.
Right. Gotta love that guy, man.
All right. Look here. Some real estate business real quick. Buffalo Bills strike a deal for a taxpayer-funded $1.4 billion stadium. And Benny, it's an open-air stadium. It's got like some type of a closure, I believe, over the stands, but it's not a dome.
So there's a closure over the stands to protect the fans from inclement weather, which they'll still be cold.
It's still going to be cold.
Right, but it will somewhat give them some protection over rain and snow, because we are talking about Buffalo, New York, but it will leave the field conditions the same as they've been. So it's Buffalo, man. It's Bills Mafia. You think they want to play under a wimpy dome? To them, that's part of their home field advantage. Just like the frozen tundra in Green Bay. You're never going to put a dome over the Packers Stadium, and you're never going to put a dome over the Buffalo Bills Stadium.
Okay. Dome, one thing. Did you notice that it said taxpayer-funded $1.4 billion stadium?
Yes. Isn't that crazy? Them people love the Buffalo Bills, man. They are nuts about the Buffalo Bills.
I did a little research. And in reading some white papers on studies, they say that fundamentally, there's no real positive economic impact from all of the investment that people make that the governments make into these stadiums. They don't really see, like a lot of the jobs that they tout are the construction jobs that'll be created, but then they go away as soon as the thing is built.
Exactly.
And then you got the soda vendors and that's it. And they're saying that a lot, they're saying that to some degree it adds to the quality of life. Some of these stadiums are the B-level baseball stadiums and stuff like that, the minority baseball stadiums. Or what do they call it?
You mean minor league?
Minor league, yeah, the minor league baseball stadiums. They're trying to get public funding. Some of it's done through bonds that they sell, and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, economically, they're saying doesn't really pay. Doesn't really pay. And Buffalo's getting ready to do the whole thing. 1.7, and like you said, no dome. I think I would have to say, go get yourself a dome. So
why? The fans been sitting outside. Why wouldn't they want to continue to sit outside?
Hey, look.
That's part of the mystique.
You might get some fans that might come if they ain't sitting outside. But one thing you will know, Benny, it ain't gonna. Hey, look, you make us continue with your competitive advantage against the Patriots, because you know that my man doesn't throw as well as your quarterback does in that mess of a weather.
That has nothing to do with it. When the Patriots was beating the slop out of the Bills, they didn't want a dome. Why would they want one now?
I know. I'm just messing.
Yeah.
But he did.
This is just like
he did struggle. They say he did struggle.
That day was far worse than any other day. That was a crazy one-day thing. But this whole dome, no dome thing, it's the same as these players that come out with no sleeves. It's like, why are you doing that? What are you proving? Proving you're tough? You could put on sleeves. I know you have some. If you don't have none, you could buy some. It really is cold outside. We're not fooling anybody. It's like -3 degrees. So usually when it's cold, normal people put clothes on, but you're going to come out with no sleeves just because.
They say it's an intimidation factor.
Exactly. That's my point exactly. And that's the way the fans look at it. And that's the way the organization looks at it.
All right. Well, there you go. Dome or no dome. Now, Super Bowl. Is that going to like hinder their ability to get a Super Bowl?
Probably.
Yeah, I would think so also.
I mean, remember they did have one Super Bowl at the Meadowlands. And it wasn't super cold. I don't know how they got lucky like that in the mid to end of February, but I believe it did rain that day. I can't remember who played. I want to say the Colts played somebody, but it was a messy day. It wasn't pretty, but they are trying to move the Super Bowl to places other than traditional warm weather places and places that have domes, because let's face it, those cities deserve to have a Super Bowl if they can do it. And the weather conditions don't have, now you don't want to go someplace where it's going to be snowing. That's crazy.
You mean like Minnesota and
yeah,
New England?
but they got a dome. They have a dome.
Minnesota has a dome now. Yeah. They had this. All right. So I wanted to mention that. Don't have much more, Benny. Let's just quickly share. We asked the question maybe a week or two ago about American-style pro football in Ukraine. Remember we talked about that? I wasn't really sure how much they had. I did some shallow research, but this came across the timeline, and again, just reminds me of how tragic this whole situation is. So Alexander Akinin was a American-style football player. This is the American Football International website. This is where we go for a lot of the information. And you see that there are games going on all over the world, leagues and things of that nature who are playing American-style football. This was a 19-year-old young man who played with the, I'm going to screw this up, but I'm going to say Jabril Eagles.
That's pretty good.
All right. In Ukraine, and died in the fighting around Donbas in the southeastern area of Ukraine. The Eagles are members of the Ukrainian American Football League. So there was a Ukrainian American Football League in existence. It's funny. We let Russia and Syria absolutely destroy the civilian population of Syria. It was and still is a tremendous tragedy. And I think once Russia saw that they could get away with that, and we didn't really step in and stop it. We showed some resistance, but again, we didn't step in and stop it. And remember, they were gassing. They were talking about they were gassing civilians and things of that nature. So this whole thing is just a tragedy unfolding. And, it's, to me, it's the biggest story. It's not the one about what happened at the awards. It's really this story, because we don't know how much of this is going to bleed over into our lives as it stands. And I think there's, at least I know in my mind, there was sort of a disconnect between the lifestyle of people in Syria and the lifestyle of people in Ukraine. Because the lifestyle of people in Ukraine looked like an American city. You know what I mean? You see apartment buildings and it looks like an American city.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you can come in and just start to bomb the slop out of it. And, who's going to say no? You know what I mean? So, and I think that's what happened, and why there's sort of maybe a bigger international response, to it. Like nobody called Putin out for what was happening in Syria. They are in Ukraine. And again, both tragedies. This one just looks more like like somebody's bombing down Ogontz Avenue or something. You know what I mean? As opposed to a place that we're kind of not familiar with. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, I keep thinking, can't imagine I got a mortgage, 30-year mortgage, and now here comes Putin. You want to bomb the neighborhood. You know what I mean? So it's, all of those things are just being disrupted, and peace for Ukraine. So, all right, that's all I got. You got anything more?
I got nothing, bro, except for, oh, wait, I do have something.
Before you say that, let me mention, Benny, I do have one thing I didn't want to share real quick, and that's just to promote us. Just to let people know. First of all, you maybe don't know, but the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings now has a blog page. Yeah, just started it. It's brand new. It's rough, but yeah, the blogs are going to go here first and then extend outward to social media from there.
Okay, so this is people's opportunity to really be able to read, as well as when we talk about the Net Point Power Rankings, the ins and outs and the little intricacies of how we do this thing that we do during the season, so that coming into the upcoming season, they'll be a lot more familiar with what we're talking about. Obviously, you give pretty good explanations, but if anybody's not sure, they have questions, they can still contact you on here, right?
Yeah, you can comment and things of that nature on here. And also, as I continue to build this out, that we'll have all the buttons for our other social media, so you can reach out, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And that's what I wanted to share. This is us here, but this is our Instagram page. Can you see that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that just changed over, so when you get to Instagram, there you go. This is our Twitter page. And see those two young guys? That's these two young guys over here. But there they go. And
I still look the same if I shave.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Put the hat on. You probably are. You're probably the same size. I'm not. That's for sure.
Not quite.
No, not at all. Not at all. And we have our YouTube page, where as soon as we finish this video, I'll be editing and getting ready to present that over to there. This is our Anchor podcast page. So again, for people who just want to listen, they don't have the time maybe to sit and watch a screen. You can put a pair of headphones on, go about your business, and get the information. That's why we try to, when we're talking about something that we're looking at, we try to read into it, speak about it in such a way that if you're just listening, you still understand what we're looking at. At least we try.
Or you just might be entertained by us arguing back and forth about Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. Gotta love Kirk Cousins.
Our little tete-a-tete. So that's it, man. That's all we got.
That's all we got.
Go Noles.
Bam.